Hello, my name is GlenDuncan, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about open source technologies. Now, a quick question before I get started. Just lay down the basis. Does anyone here knowingly use any open source software on a day-to-day basis? Alright, hopefully by the end of this presentation, more hands will go up. Alright, there's an open source definition that you have to follow in order for your product to be considered open source. And one of the criteria, I have all 10 listed here, is it must have free redistribution. There are many products that we use today that don't have free redistribution, such as all the Microsoft products like Windows and Office. If you freely redistribute those, you freely go to prison. So just think about like how, if I had a Linux operating system that I wanted to share with others in the classroom, I could easily just burn a copy of the disk and give it to each one of you. And then you'd be free to do the same thing. You could go home, you can install it, then you could give the disk to somebody else. And there would be no recompense at all. Like there would be no, it wouldn't be illegal. Whereas with certain closed source, if they even catch you trying to put their software on a device that they don't think it should be on, like for instance Mac OS 10, if you try to put Mac OS 10 on a Windows machine and for some reason they catch you, it's not going to end well. Also the source code, you must also give the source code in an open source application. You must freely distribute the source code so that anyone could modify it. There are many examples of this, and I'll get to a few of those later, where there are derivations of products based off of their source code. That's what I was just saying about derived works. Like Mozilla Firefox has many different derivations. One that is commonly known, I'm not really going to go in depth on it, but the Tor browser is commonly known about in the hacker community, as well as many other communities. And it's got some different uses, but I'm not going to go into that. And also the integrity of the author's source code. There is a sort of clause to where the author of the code can make it to where there are certain things that you can't edit. Like certain things that it would be against the policy for you to actually like edit it, because that could, sorry, my words aren't with me today, they rarely are, for you to compromise the integrity of that application, like security flaws and stuff. Also, the author of an open source application is not allowed to discriminate against any person or group in the distribution or the use of their product. That would be like if I had an operating system and I was like, okay, now only the people in here that are wearing leather jackets can use this operating system. I think Phil would be the only one to be able to use that operating system. Or only the people have a watch on can use this software. So sort of something like that. Also, no discrimination against fields of endeavor. That would be like if I said, okay, only the people in here that are going to use this operating system for media applications can use it. It has the functionality to do so much more. It has the functionality to be able to do media applications, to be able to browse the web, play games, but only this certain person, only this certain type of people who are going to use it for this can use it. This would be more like in a commonplace example saying that you, like, okay, who in here has used TeamViewer before? Alright, one of the main things when you're installing or opening TeamViewer is it asks you, are you going to be using this for personal use, or are you going to be using this for commercial use? If you're going to be using this personal use, you can do it all day, we won't charge you a dime. But if you're making money off it, we're going to make money off of you. That is one way you can tell if something's open source or not. If they ask you your field of endeavor. Like, TeamViewer is not open source. But also the distribution of licenses. The license pretty much, in most cases, will go with it whenever you customize it and make a derivation of it. Like the Linux-based operating systems is a good example of this, because you've got so many different derivations of Linux, and then you've got so many derivations of those derivations, and so many derivations of those derivations of derivations, and it just keeps going on in a chain. Also, the license must not be specific to a product. This is pretty much exactly like what Mac OS does. And they're notorious for vendor lock-in, which I'll explain a little bit about that later, but where in order to have Mac OS X, legally, you have to have an Apple device. In order to have Apple iOS, like for the iPhones and the iPads and the iPods, legally you have to have one of those devices that operating system is running. Also, it must not restrict other software. A good example of this would be how Mac OS X, if you're using Mac OS X, it comes shipped with iTunes. And I've never seen another media player on a Mac other than iTunes. So in that software, in that code, they have made it to where like this is basically what you've got to use. And also, Microsoft's Paint could be a slight example of this, because they only give you one choice. If you want to do simple Paint, if you want to do simple editing on a Windows machine out of the box, you have to use this tool. Also, it must be technology neutral. And again, Mac is very guilty of this. Back in the old days, they made their hardware platforms so proprietary. Like, there's no proprietary platforms with a lot of these open source software. They would make the platform so proprietary that you would not be able, basically, to copy it. You would have to have their certain bus technology. You would have to have their certain motherboard technology. But a lot of people couldn't do that, so that really cut down on the freedom a lot, the freedom aspect a lot. The open source initiative is the people who they were founded in 1998, and they're the people that maintain the open source definition. Those 10 guidelines, they're the ones that are over that. And they have the freedom to modify it as they see fit and as the time passes. And they also go over the license approval. Like if you wanted to create a work that you wanted to be open source, anyone could use it, anyone could modify it, anyone could redistribute it, you'd have to go through them in order to get the license approved, and they would check it against those 10 guidelines in order to make sure that your product is actually capable of being open source. And you can find them at opensource.org. And they're also supported by donation and optional paid membership. The optional paid membership, it's not really that important. It gives you some things, but it's mainly like if you wanted to donate anyway, you could do this and then you'd have slight privileges. It's like $40 a year, I think. But it'd really only be useful for people who are actually coding. So. And there became a need for open source software. And one of the main needs for the open source software is freedom. And when I say freedom, I don't mean like free as in beer, I mean free as in free speech. That's like, that quote's actually from Richard Stallman. He is the head of the Free Software Foundation, but he doesn't actually believe in open source. But this quote is used all throughout the open source community. And the reason he doesn't believe in open source is he thinks that it's missed the point. He believes in free software as more of a ideological movement, of more of a philosophical journey than he does just giving the users freedom. He believes it's a fight. This man, he is sort of unusual in a way. He lives at MIT where he does his research, and he does not own a cell phone, and he tells other people you should not own a cell phone. But also another need for it would be the compatibility. Like I've got applications on here. I'm currently running a Linux operating system using a virtual machine with VirtualBox, which is an open source software. And I have the same applications on here that I have on my Windows machine. I have VLC Media Player. Couldn't get it to work earlier, but I'll figure that out. And I'll hit on that a little bit. But I've got VLC Media Player and I've got LibreOffice, which is what I'm using to do this presentation. Now, just wondering, and be honest, could anyone in here tell that I was not using PowerPoint? All right, just making sure. All right. Also, to topple monopolies. We all know, like, the big companies that do this, they, like, really, Microsoft got hit pretty hard a while back with this. IBM also did. Microsoft had to be cut into two divisions. They had to be cut into their software division and their hardware division because they were monopolizing the market. Also, Apple, they sort of got hit, not as big, because at the time their market shares weren't as great. But some of the benefits of open source software is that it is free. And when I say free, I mean two different things. This really brings a debate of libre versus gratis. Libre is the Latin word that we get the word liberty from. That means free as in freedoms. Free as in you can do whatever you want with this. And then gratis is the Latin word that many Romance languages like Spanish and Italian and French gain words from, like grazie in Italian and gratias in Spanish. It's basically like, it's more of a freedom as in, you know, money free. Or you can have this without paying for it, type of thing. Just trying to get that settled down so we know that. And just because something is open source and it is libre, meaning you have the liberty to use it how you see fit, does not mean that it is gratis, does not mean that it is free. Most of them are, like a lot of them are, but not all of them will be. And there's no predatory vendor lock-in, like I was saying with the Apple Macs and the Windows machines, how like you need to use this certain thing. Like there are actually distributions you can get open source operating systems, like the Linux operating systems, that will allow you to choose which program you want to use. Like most of them come with multiple browsers and multiple terminal applications and multiple video players. Also, there are many different flavors to choose from, such as, well, I'll close in on that a little more later because I've got some other slides. But also, it's community supported, which means like there's online communities for each of the open source softwares that maintain it basically. Like if you go now and you download the newest version of VLC Player, then that software that you're downloading hasn't just been made by one person or one company. It's been upgraded and researched by people all over the world. People all over the world have contributed to this, and this can give enhanced security and stability, because how many people have had a Windows operating system or a Mac operating system, not as common, and have had security flaws with that, or stability flaws with that? Well, one reason I think that is, and this is getting a little bit into my opinion, is that you have one company that is doing this, one company that is making this software and they're developing this software, and they get tunnel vision. They've been working on it so long they can't see 5 foot in front of them. Also the versatility to be able to do what you want with the software that you have available, whether or not you pay for it or not, doesn't really matter. But one thing is that you can use open source software on many, many platforms. Like a lot of you, I'm sure, have used 7-zip, and they actually have a Linux version that is command line. So you could archive a file on a Windows system, then go to a Linux system, and then unzip that archive. And it makes it to where not only can many people use this software, but many people can use it in many different ways. There are a couple disadvantages to open source software, one of which being that there is decentralized support. If you are ever troubleshooting a piece of open source software, you're not just going to be able to go to a big company and say, hey, I need help with this. And they're like, oh, okay, we don't really support that. Like, for instance, if anyone's ever had issues with a Linux operating system or any other type of open source software, you probably had to go look on forums in the communities of these open source softwares to find any help whatsoever. Like, I've had to go and I've had to look stuff up for Ubuntu and Kali and just trying to get stuff to work. And eventually it does work, but it is sort of painstaking. And there are no warranties for the most part, because, like, you know, you can buy a Dell machine and it's got Windows built in, and you have a problem with your operating system, you call up Microsoft and you get tech support and you tell them, I've got this issue. They're like, okay, give me your license number, and I'll help you. You don't have a license number, and a lot of times you don't even have the same applications or the same functionality. Like right now, this LibreOffice, it does look like I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation from this view, but when I get out into it, it's actually a little more complicated and a little more simple, if you get my meaning. Like, once you've been playing with it for about 20-30 minutes, you get the hang of it, but you throw someone in front of it just out of the blue, and they're like, what am I looking at? But also, yeah, like I was saying, potentially painstaking troubleshooting. You could beat your head against the wall for an hour and never find anything out. Or you could do it like, just gotta look at it basically from the right angle. Also, there are common open source licenses which are used with many different products, like the GNU General Public License. Well, actually I say GNU, but it's actually pronounced GNU. It stands for GNU's not Unix. It was Richard Stallman, that guy I was telling you about, he actually spearheaded the GNU project. And it was an operating system that they were originally building, and they just couldn't get the kernel right. So then they used Linus Torvalds' Linux kernel in order to create GNU/Linux. The Mozilla Public License. This covers products made by the Mozilla Foundation, such as Mozilla Firefox, Mozilla Thunderbird, different applications like that. They also have some applications that are built especially to help young coders learn how to code in HTML. I'm sure some of you like that information. And then the MIT license. This is for, I think it's Massachusetts. I don't really know the acronym for that college, but y'all have all heard of MIT. So. The Apache license. This covers the Apache software, which is used for web hosting, I believe. And then also there's a lot of popular open source software, some of which I've encountered, some of which I haven't. I'm going to show you some in a minute. The Android operating systems. Okay, now who in here has used a open source software on a daily basis with using your Android smartphone? All right. Who all in here has an Android smartphone? Okay, I didn't see some hands up. I could have swore they had Androids. But also the Linux operating systems. And Android is actually based on the Linux kernel. That's one thing about it being open source. You can take it and you can modify it and you can use it on pretty much any platform if you have the coding skill. Notice I say that. Don't just go home, download Mozilla Firefox source code and try to edit it. You might break something. Also, the Chromium project. Not many people seem to know this, but Google Chrome was actually based off of the Chromium source code, which was released by Google as an open source project. This allows different browsers, such as Torch browser, which is a pretty good browser. It's got different capabilities built in. And Komodo, they're a security company. They make antivirus and stuff like that. They also make secure browsers using the Chromium and the Firefox source code in order to be able to give a more secure browsing environment. Now, with a secure browsing environment, you are going to compromise some things. Like, I was using Komodo Dragon, their Firefox-based browser, in order to look at some stuff on Fingerhut, and I couldn't see any images. So I had to go to just straight Firefox in order to do that. Also, the cryptocurrencies. like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Dogecoin, all of those are open source. That's actually how Litecoin and Dogecoin came to be. Someone took the source code for Bitcoin, modified it, made Litecoin. Someone took the source code for Litecoin, modified it, and made Dogecoin. And so cryptocurrencies are becoming pretty big in the communities online. They offer like more secure transfers than fiat currencies like US dollars and Great British pounds. And the GNU image manipulation program. This is basically like Microsoft Paint on crack and free Photoshop. Like you can use it either way. You can just go in there and write stuff out. Also, asterisk is used for VoIP. Sorry, I say VoIP all the time. Voice over IP, which is basically like phones that use the internet in order to communicate. You can run your own voice over IP server with asterisk. This would allow you basically, I believe it will allow you to do a private branch exchange, and I believe you can also call out. I haven't used it because I don't really have a use for it. I would be the only one in my house that would even know how to use the darn thing. There's more popular open source software, like I was telling you, 7-zip. It's very useful. OpenVPN, that has its uses too. That's used to securely connect from one point to the other, either like with your machine to another remote machine, or your machine to remote servers that would then give you VPN access to the internet. A lot of people use that for a lot of different reasons. TrueCrypt is encryption technology that you can use on, I believe, pretty much any operating system. I'm not sure on Mac OS, so don't hold me to that. Pigeon is a open source IMing software. You can also sort of tweak it to where it will get on IRC, or Internet Relay Chat, which is very highly utilized in many communities that deal with open source. Also VLC, that is a media player and I put it on pretty much every system I get, just because I don't like Windows Media Player that much. And then FileZilla is an FTP client that you can use in conjunction with the file transfer protocol. You can use it to basically transfer files from the server to your machine, or from your machine to a server. And OpenOffice, I chose to use that one because that's the one more people are familiar with OpenOffice, versus LibreOffice, which is what I'm using. A lot of people haven't even heard of that. They're like, Libre, what's that, a book? No, it means free in Latin. And then, I put TrueCrypt on there twice. And there's many, many more open source applications. And I could go into depth on different ones, like the Linux operating systems. You've got so many different types of Linux operating systems. That's the end of my PowerPoint side of my presentation, and now I'm going to do a demonstration portion, and I've also got a video to play for you. I'm going to play that first. This sort of...
Hi, I'm Jonas. Do you know what open source is? Well, let me explain it for you. Basically, it means that the recipe of any given work is shared and free for anybody to use. Let me take you back where it all started.
Being a little finicky and
In the 1980s, a guy named Richard Stallman had a problem with the software in his printer. He could fix the printer himself, but unfortunately, he was not allowed to get inside the black box by the manufacturer. This frustration was the beginning of the free and open source movement. The essential benefits of open source are access to the source or recipe of any given work, free remix and redistribution of any given work, an end to predatory vendor lock-in, and a higher degree of cooperation. Open source is originally a software-related term, but let's take a non-technical example of where the open source mindset is actually used today. Here's Dave. He is a really passionate skateboarder. He loves the community because everyone shares tips and tricks openly. This means that everybody has access to the source of becoming a better skateboarder. Dave has the opportunity of remixing an existing trick and making it even better. He becomes more skilled, faster. If Dave's skateboard breaks, he doesn't necessarily have to go back to the vendor to get it fixed. He can also fix it himself with the help of one of his friends from the community. This is because the design of the skateboard is open source. In the skateboard community, you share new ideas and remix each other's tricks. You cooperate and reach much higher standards than any skateboarder could reach alone. Now let's take another example. Here's Susan and Michael. They have just bought a new property and now need a new house. John is an open source architect and offers 3 designs that Susan and Michael can base their dream house on. They choose option A because it best fits their needs. But Susan wants a conservatory as well, so Michael draws one and adds that as an extension to their chosen house design, option A. Susan and Michael choose company A to help build the house. It should be easy for company A to build it because the architectural drawings and guidelines are already produced by John, the open source architect. But during the process, Susan and Michael find out that company A's employees are very slow and not very polite. They therefore get company B to finish the work. It's easy for company B to take over the project because everything is openly documented. Fortunately, company B does an amazing job of completing the construction project. In the meantime, Coco and June have shared a new solar cell design as an extension to option A as well. Susan and Michael also decide to add that to their home. Susan and Michael are now happy owners of a beautiful and customized new home. But John is also happy. He can now add 2 new extensions to his professional portfolio without having done anything himself. So now I've given you a taste of some of the many benefits of open source. But before I leave you, I have to put an end to some of the myths that still exist. First, you have no control of your work. That's not true. As the initiator, John, the open source architect, verifies extensions and chooses what can be added to his specific project, and therefore also decides where the project is heading. Second, open equals unsafe. Not true. In an open source project, many people are involved and cooperate to make an even safer product and to keep unauthorized people out. And third, everything is free. No, the source itself is free and publicly available. But the house must, for example, still be built, customized, maintained, and provided with water, power, and heat. Hopefully you can now better understand the positive term open source and the principles within. Please start opening up and use the extreme beneficial principles the way they deserve. As mentioned, my name is Jonas, and I'm representing Bit Blueprint. We have, in collaboration with Moving Monday, made this video to help scale the positive principles within the open source paradigm. We have, of course, made this video free for everyone to use, modify, and share. So feel free to do that. Thanks for watching.
That's just a short little video I found, and I thought that was pretty cool. So now, like I said, I'm currently using a Linux operating system, it's Ubuntu. And by the way, if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to raise your hand. And I didn't like, one good thing about the Linux operating system and open source software is if you find something that is buggy with your system, you can just change it. Like, I was using Ubuntu right out of the box for this, but the Unity desktop environment was really buggy. It was making everything go slow, so I was like, okay, I can't do this. This is going to drive everyone, including me, crazy. So then I changed it to the GNOME desktop environment, which flows a lot better for this. So I'm just going to show you a web browser, Firefox web browser, that is completely open source. There are different derivations of it. You can do practically anything you want with it. And I'm just going to take you to the Open Source Initiatives homepage. And it's actually pretty simple to use. And just like a lot of y'all use Google Chrome, it's got this over here that you hit for the settings. You can open private windows, you can look at your history, change your preferences, like your home page, and what page opens when, and why this happens, and what's going on. Also developer tools, which is, that would be useful if you are trying to learn how to code different like websites. You could look at the, basically the source code for this, not technically, but for this web page, and then you would be able to, if you have permissions, to modify it or just get like little tips and tricks out of it. I've actually done this a couple of times, and I like doing it because you can play pranks on people by changing what's on a web page, but I'm not going to get into that. I have VLC on here, but it wasn't working for me earlier. I believe there was another one I had on here. Oh, LibreOffice, y'all have seen that. And I'll show you what I mean about the, how different the interface is from PowerPoint. Like, it does have this certain things that, that are similar, but then this bar is here by default. Not this bar, but this task pane is here by default. And then all the icons look different. And one reason I'll contribute to that is that Microsoft has probably copyrighted every single icon they use in every single application, so you can't really use it without crossing a lot of red tape and going to prison. But open source software is pretty useful for certain things. Also Thunderbird Mail, I haven't really used it very much, but it's because I just use the web portal for my mail. You know, I don't have any specific email, and it's sort of annoying to install that and have to sync it to each device. That's a discussion for another time though. Also, I believe Cheese and Bracero, actually I believe all of these are open source software. And actually installing an application on Linux, I'm just going to go ahead and show you one way how to do that, because some people are like, they're very iffy about getting Linux, about getting any open source software, because like, just like the video is on, they think it's unsecure, they think it's too complicated. It is very complicated if you let it be, but if you go to the right sources, if you go to the community and you research how to do this and how to do it correctly the first time, you won't have to do it a second time. Like, trying to think of a software. Oh, VirtualBox. I'm not going to necessarily use it, but I'm just going to Google VirtualBox for 64-bit Linux hosts. And VirtualBox is an open source software, which I'm actually using, and I'll show you some of the features of that in a second. Doesn't look like they have a stable release for my operating system, but I'll just go ahead and show you that on the Windows side. I'm actually running this on a Windows 7 platform, and I changed the visual aspects so that it would give me better performance. And currently using VirtualBox. And with VirtualBox, you can do many different things in different operating systems. And really, I actually have two sides to my laptop. One is Windows 8, one's Windows 7. On the Windows 8 side, I have a lot more than this, a lot more virtual machines. I just brought this one over so that I can use it for my presentation. It's pretty cool because a lot of the different closed source softwares you can get, they can, like, you have to, there are a lot of stipulations with the Microsoft ones, like Microsoft Client Hyper-V, you have to have Windows 8, 8.1 Pro in order to use it. But this, like, they don't know what I'm trying to say, I just don't know the word. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off here, sorry. I thought it wouldn't take too long, but I took way too long. Sorry. Alright, go back to my title slide. Thank you guys for your time. Sorry.